pay for anything, make any decision without data, and not just some picture data, but accurate data. And so in 2017, between October and December, we embarked on a statewide school census, and to just even know the number of pupils we have in our system at that time. And that exercise brought out a lot of discoveries. My team went to riverine communities, rural communities that are so remote that nobody had even been there. And in the course of conducting that census, we discovered many things. For instance, there was one particular community where the teachers had not been there for over a year, and the kids were not going to school anymore. But these people were on payroll, but they just were not going to school because the place is remote and there was no adequate follow-up. And so that process was very eye-opening for us. And so we were able to capture, so the school census that we did was not just with the learners, we also looked at the teachers. How many active teachers do we have? Not what we have on payroll. How many active ones that actually come to work? You know, there's a record that they come to work when they're supposed to. We looked at the facilities of our infrastructure. You know, how many schools have the toilet, what they keep tree, but how many have, how many have water and it's functioning? How many kids are sitting on the ground floor, right? So those are the things we capture at the time. And I tell you, we were very careful to have that data. We could plan, we could then cost to say, okay, these are the number of students, pupils we have in our system. Therefore, this is the amount of textbooks and instructional materials that government needs to provide. So we are trying to do the same thing now for our secondary schools, our teachers, and our adult education centers, and our special schools, schools of children with special needs. And we believe that when we do that, we are going to be able to then not just only capture the biometric exercise and fingerprints, but we're also not going to now have a student's ID identification system. That way we can track the learners within our system from when they enter our system and when they exit. The government has told us so many times that he wants to know who are the best performing 100 students in a day, 100,000 students in a day. You know, so it should be a way to follow their progress. And it's not just asking for the sake of asking. There's a reason behind it. So if we know who our best 100,000 students are, we know the areas of specialization that we are interested in, we can then even project to say, okay, in so far and so years, we're going to be able to provide this number of medical doctors, this number of engineers, this number of geographers, this number of computer programmers, right? Right now, we don't know, we are just there, and this is 2022. So we have no reason to be so analog, and so analog that we can't plan, we can't budget properly. So this is why we are embarking on this. We started with students in SS3 because it's an exit class. We wanted to capture them before they write their YA and leave. And for both public and private schools in the state, we have about 60,000 SS3 students, and about 45,000 of them so far have been captured in the biometric exercise. So we are now collaborating, but then while we are doing our biometric exercise, there is also a state identification program going on that is going to link state IDs with the NIN, national ID, right? And so we also want to key into that. So by the time we are done, our target is really to have captured at least 500,000 learners by the end of this year. So that by next year, all our students, whether it was at whatever grade level, are in the database, and we are able to know and project how we want to support them.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Commissioner, renewing your past position as the chairman of Edo Soba, you were able to transform the education narrative using Edo Gas, which is a model that has now been adopted by many states, Lagos, and even Rwanda. Could you please tell the general public about the Best?
Thank you. I want to start by saying that the the catalyst for the success of Edo Best is no other person than the governor of our state, His Excellency Governor of our state. Edo Best is his vision. I am simply an implementer along with other people. So I use this opportunity to acknowledge all the wonderful staff I worked with when I was in Tibet, teachers in the primary schools for their support, and the education managers. I mean, our education is a large ecosystem, and basic education is actually probably the largest subsector in the state. The total population of the primary school teachers, for example, is about 4 times the size of the civil sector. It's huge, and they were able to do all of this because the governor was had the political will, had the vision. I mean, there are times I don't even know what to do, because the problems were enormous. I used to tell people that I didn't have a breaking news. I have breaking process. Every given minute there's something going wrong somewhere, and it can become quite overwhelming. And then we came into the thank God, and again, much appreciation to our governor. We were able to do so many things in a relatively short amount of time. And we were able to train over 11,000 teachers, renovate more than 400 schools, translate into thousands of classrooms. We launched No Child on the Floor, which meant that at my last camp before I left, over 65% of our pupils were not on the floor. We were able to successfully provide the furniture for them. The teachers, we introduced technology, which meant that all our teachers who went through the training got a tablet.
Our sound is
And the
okay.
exciting thing
Facebook is
about
interpreting our
Edo
sound.
is that it wasn't just a publicity thing. People always think that, it only happened in the know. In our rural communities, the teachers got the same thing. You go to Ajoki, Kolokolo, Boa, all these Nikoroga, all these places, very remote, Lushi, in Southeast, Ifako Island, all these places that nobody will go to. We went there, even camps. It was when I was the chairman, and I came to know that we have quite a number of camps, farming settlements in Edo State across the government area. So a lot was done. I think for us, introducing technology helped a great deal to restore some sanity into the system. Teachers, we knew when they came to school, they was not dependent on somebody to report it. We knew when they came, we knew how much time they were spending to review their lessons. We knew how much time they were spending teaching, and so and then we provided support also. A new category of field officers were created as a result of the Best, which was what we call learning and development officers. They went to school every day, mentored and coached. So we didn't believe in just punitive measures. If you don't teach, you are going to sack you. No. It's like, okay, what are your specific challenges and weaknesses as a teacher? Let us diagnose it properly and provide the requisite support. It is only when you don't have the right attitude, you want to earn salary, you don't want to work, then you're going to have a problem. So we were able to do so many things and I have been quite humbled by that experience. I came in blindly, like I would say. I didn't even know she was as bad as we were when I came in. And like I always say to people, if I knew, I probably would not have accepted the job. I would have been so scared because, to even venture. It's a lot of work. A lot of work, I'm still dealing with that now. Who is the Ministry of Education? And then giving somebody somewhere is angry and abusing me, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Okay, doctor. So we'd like to know, as parents and teachers, students alike are watching this program, and they would like to know what the benefit of this program is to them and the Edo people, especially Edo Best people in Zulu. So I want you to reiterate the benefits.
When we started in 2018, the governor launched Edo Best I guess since we now have 2.0, we can say EduBest 1.0. The governor launched that in 2018, and it meant it stood for Edo Basic Education Sector Transformation, because the focus at the time was just basic. Now that is sector-wide, we now have EduBest 2.0. EduBest 2.0 is no longer an acronym. It's just an aspiration that Edo State wants to be the best at all levels of education, whether it's adult education, whether it's special education, or technical and vocational education, or tertiary. It cuts across all sectors, all levels, excuse me. And the EduBest 2.0 is a very holistic reform agenda. We essentially took what we are supposed to be doing as a ministry, as a sector, and basically encapsulated our mandate in 5 pillars: governance, teaching innovation, learning for skills, school environment, values. And those 5 pillars of EduBest 2.0 are also quite intertwined with 5 of the components of the mega agenda. So essentially, we are saying that the government wants to reform education. Education is broken. I was reminded recently that for instance, the reform, the level of reform that we want to do at the level of the Ministry of Education has not happened since 1983. That is almost 40 years. Even in the area of policy, we're talking about revising the Edo State education policy that cuts across all levels of education. That is a humongous task, because to revise our policy, we have to look at existing instruments from the federal government and elsewhere. So for instance, we have the 2004 Universal Basic Education Act that clearly states and delineates basic education from the rest. So that was 2004, over 19 years ago. Almost 20 years later, it is now that we are not even trying to implement that act. I mean, the act was now domesticated as a law in Edo, the red law. You understand? So we are just doing all of that now. So the point in all of this is that the work we are doing, the work the government has asked us to do, there is nothing surface level about it. And that is why when people try, for instance, to criticize the EduBest 1.0, they can't really go far because the evidences are there. Now we have, as a result of serious work for over 2 years, we have kids in ECCD3, kindergarten 3, who can read. Our goal now in Edo is to make sure by the time a pupil is leaving primary 1, they can read. When we came into the system, when I came into the system in 2017, I went to schools, different schools. We have kids in primary 6 who could not read. And then I'm like, okay, how are they going to write primary 6 exam when they cannot read? Nobody could give me an answer. So look at the things we are doing now. We are not where we need to be yet, but a lot of progress has been made. And now we are talking about learning standards. The government has asked us, we must have learning standards. When a child is going from primary 1 to primary 2, GSS 1 to GSS 2, what should they have? What should they know? And how do we assess that we know it? So we have a draft of our learning standards ready. We've carried out a pilot of learning assessment. We're going to be doing learning assessment going forward. So learning assessment is not only assessing the learner, but it also assesses the system. So if maybe for example, 60% of a bunch of kids across the local government area who are tested on a particular subject have the same pattern of scores, then it tells us there's something wrong with the system. There's something wrong with there's something wrong with the pedagogy, which is the method of teaching. Do you get it? So now we are looking at the national curriculum. We use the national curriculum. His Excellency has also told us the national curriculum must be our minimum, is our jump-off point. So we can't just say the federal government has given us a national. No, we must go beyond the national curriculum. We must enhance it. And we have been doing that since the time of EduBest 1.0. We brought back, for instance, co-curricular activities. And that was why by the time we started, before of the unfortunate global pandemic of COVID-19, we had, before we shut down in March 2020, we had schools founded in 1902, 1909, 1912, many schools founded in the 1960s, 1940s, who were doing inter-house sport and school excursion for the very first time in 2021, in 2020 and 2019. Do you understand? That's how far-reaching our reform is. So it's not just one thing. That's why we have 5 pillars. If you look at the 5 pillars, it cuts across everything. With EduBest 2.0, the tertiary subsector is not left out. When we say learning for skills, we're not just talking about skills acquisition. We are saying that if a student is graduating from any of our state institutions with a degree in anything, that person must be competent in that area. So you cannot say you graduated in you have a degree in computer science and you don't really know. They ask you how good are you in computer, you say small. No. Or that the realm of a student, a graduate's ability in computer, who studied computer, is how to use Microsoft Word. No. Are you a programmer, or what? A software developer? So we should be able to, link whatever they are teaching them with what they require, that the industry requires. So we want to have a better synergy with academia and industry. So it's not just enough. I met somebody the other day, people are studying all these nebulous sounding degrees, and then they graduate. If they get a 30,000 naira a month job, they are happy. No. Even while they are students, if they are being taught properly, and if you have a sound tertiary education system, these students should actually have jobs that they are doing on the side, relevant to their. If I'm a computer science student, I should be able to be building websites. I should be developing apps, even while I'm in school. Developing it for industry, and people are paying me for it. So I don't have to overburden my parents for tuition. So these are some of the things that we are looking at under EduBest 2.0. We want to document things, we want to automate, introduce technology. It's not just only the learners and the teachers, it's also the education managers, those of us in the office. Do we even understand what we are doing, right? So we are now in the process of trying to build the system. To look at unfortunately because of time, maybe next time I can talk about even the organogram of the Ministry of Education. Our mission, vision, mandate, and values all tie in with EduBest 2.0. So we are not just all over the place. You understand? There is a method to our madness.
So clearly, this program benefits both the basic and the tertiary.
Everybody.
Now, at this juncture, we would like to congratulate His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State, and yourself alike, for the successful handing over of the College of Education, Okiabewa, to the federal government. It be a good fit.
Yes, thank you. I think it was amazing that His Excellency was able to attract that federal institution to Edo State. And not just to Edo State, but to successfully repurpose what has become a moribund institution. Academy was an impressive asset that had been abandoned for years, even before the administration of Governor Bassett. So it's nice that it has now been upgraded to a federal institution, not just a federal institution, but federal institution, Federal College of Education, technical. Technical skills are very, what is the word? Are not very common in Nigeria. And that is why today now, even amongst us Nigerians, we say you want to get a good tyler or a good workmanship, you go to neighboring West African countries to get them. That's sad. So having a Federal College of Education Technical helps us, not just us in Edo, but the country as a whole. Now, we in Edo want to revamp our technical schools. And the governor has said he now wants to build 15 additional ones. But right now we have 5. And he wants to build 15 additional ones. The oldest of this technical school is the Benin Government Science and Technical College, Benin. It used to be known as Benin Technical College that was built in the time of Indonesia. Right? So we are trying to revamp and so having a technical school that will train the next generation of technical teachers is also going to help.
Doctor, there has been this rumor that the College of Education Academy has been shut down and there have been pockets of protests here and there. Could you please tell us about the true position of this institution? I'm sorry, Doctor. Ikwebe.
Okay. Ikwebe. Okay, thank you for that question. Yes. One of the challenges have come to find out with reform government is that even when government means well, there are always clauses in the rules of government. They are always, whether internally or externally. And unfortunately, as a result of the broken public service spanning decades now, you have a segment of the workers who have this sort of sense of entitlement that government work is an inheritance, so they can then pay their work. So there is, in summary, there's a lot to say about Ikwebe, but let me just say this. Even before I came into government in 2017, around the time the governor was talking about reforming basic education, part of his plan was that it wasn't just going to stop at the training the teachers in-service, because then in-service teacher training. That's people already in the system. But he wanted to extend the reform to pre-service teacher training. So those who are in the colleges of education, who are training to become future teachers. Because it was so apparent that in order to sustain whatever reform is happening now, that the next generation of teachers in Edo have to embody what it is to be a sound teacher. They have to know their stuff. They have to write excellently well. And to do that, they also have to be trained well themselves. And so clearly, at the time, we have different colleges of education, everybody doing the same program. There was never enough money. In one case, I think the annual budget was like about 700 million. Then I asked, how many students do they have? They had about 300, or between 300 to 400 students. And then I asked, so what was the tuition for the student? 25,000. How are they going to raise the money? How is government? Imagine each institution, minimum of 700 million. Where is the money coming from? And so part of the reform in the education sector was to say, okay, we're going to have three separate state colleges of education. Let's have one streamlined into 3 campuses. So those existing 3 were repealed. A new law was passed, creating the Edo State College of Education. Main campus is at Ikwebe, focusing on training secondary school teachers and TVET teachers. The other campus is at Abuja, focusing on training basic education teachers, so primary, junior, early childhood. The third campus is at Afuzi, focusing on training teachers for physical and health education and special education. The case of Afuzi is particularly exciting because of the focus on special education. Before now, as far as I know, or I've been told, there's really only one school in the whole of southern Nigeria, if not the whole country. I think somewhere in Oyo, where they train teachers for special education. So I don't say they didn't have that before now. So now we are having that. Do you understand? So in 2017, all these different colleges of education were told to stop admitting new students because a new college was coming. They wanted the existing students to just finish, graduate, and they go. Others complied, EICO then did it. So at the time I became commissioner last year, in February of this year, I had a meeting. I called for a meeting of all the union leaders of EICO then to say, what are the issues? They had a long list of grievances. I said, okay, I like to solve problems. I just don't like to talk and argue and fight unnecessarily. I said, okay, before I became commissioner, recruitment for the new college had been done, had nothing to do with it. So I said, okay, the good people apply, did they apply? They said no, they were not aware. Then I said, okay, those of you who are interested, who would have participated? Mind you, other people from other campuses have participated. So to those of you who would like to be considered, I give you 1 week to send me your names, and then I'll go to His Excellency and make an appeal. So they told me that the following week they were having some sort of joint union meeting, something that 1 week would not be enough to give them 2 weeks. I said, okay, in 2 weeks, send me your names. Do you know they did it? Only 8 people sent me their names, and they were non-academic staff. At that same meeting, I also told them that I wanted to set up a committee that would work with the ministry to close out EICO. Do you understand? So there is now an Edo State College of Education. EICO College of Education no longer exists. So I was among the people that were there, since they were leaders of the various groups on campus, I was going to by myself select them. In the process, I could sense some body language, so I asked jokingly if I was breaking some sort of protocol. So they said, well, there's a way they select who will be on the committee. I said, fine. You can go and sort yourself out, select the committee members, and send me the names. All of this happened in February. I've not heard from these people. In that same meeting, I also said to them, look, I don't want people to leave here and then next week you will hear something and then you feel the commissioner didn't even say anything. I said, look guys, we are going to send people a letter deploying all of you to the Ministry of Education. You didn't participate in recruitment, so you cannot be moved en masse to the new college. If you're going to do that, then what is the purpose of going through the process of creating a new school? The idea is that from the personnel to the curriculum to even the admission process, it has to be done differently to produce the kind of result we want. And the result we want in Edo State is that we have the next generation of teachers who can teach. So I told them they are going to be deployed. Ordinarily, if government wanted to do what is right, because they refuse to participate in that recruitment process, it would have automatically meant that they don't have a job. They had a choice. I mean, it's not by force to be a government worker. You can always go somewhere else, go to the private sector. So we gave them the opportunity, told them why they had to be deployed to the ministry. From the ministry, and then I also said, we are not going to expect you, those of you living at Quebec, to be commuting to Benin every day to work. For the purposes of administrative management, we have to move you from somewhere to somewhere. From there, we now send you to where other relevant MDA. So I asked the acting provost to essentially segment the staff. Tell me, of the 149 academic and non-academic, how many live in Benin now? How many don't live in Benin but want to move to Benin? How many live at Igwebe? And how many live in surrounding towns? So when I have that data, then we know what to now do. In the course of all of this back and forth, the students now also contacted me. Mind you, a set of students graduated in February of this year. So the last set of students are graduating before September this year. Those who graduated in February sent me a message, an SOS, that I should please intervene, that they are the result of the exam they wrote in February, as the results have not been released. I was shocked. If the students have not contacted me, I wouldn't even know. So I sent a message through the PS to the acting provost to confirm if that was true. And I was told yes, that the lecturers were not releasing, they were not going to release the results of these students. They were their any salary. So we gave a deadline by which they should release the results or their names will be removed from payroll. If I not be any chief lecturers earn 500,000 or more a month. That's even more than what a commissioner of education earns. So you cannot earn that kind of money and tell me you will not release the results of students who have paid their tuition, they wrote exam, and you're not going to release it. So they were given three, according to the acting provost, three different extensions of time to get it done. They still didn't do it. So we're going to remove their name from payroll. Those who did not, those who did remain on payroll. In the course of asking more questions, I now came to discover also that the release of results is not just for this February. It goes as far back as 2017. I mean, come on. Somebody would have gone to school for 3 years or even more, assuming there was strike action, and then they graduated in 2017, and in 2022, they don't have their result. And I am, as commissioner, I'm supposed to just fold my hands and don't care about the students. So on this issue of release of results, as long as these people were paid, they are going to release those results. They are going to release them. And I've already directed my permanent secretary that anybody who did not release any results will no longer get